Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our event today. I'm Shelley Justice, and I'll be your moderator for Necessary for Some, Beneficial for All, Literacy Supports, and Read and Write for Google Chrome. And today we'll specifically be considering those supports as they relate to students with dyslexia. I see that we have a pretty large group logging on today. You may have noticed that you're on mute, which is a great advantage because it allows you to ask questions and receive answers throughout the session by using the questions window on your participant panel. And if we can go to the questions window, this is what it should look like, and it's over on the right-hand side of your screen, more than likely. And if you have any questions, just type them in there. And Doug Rosette, who is one of our vice presidents for North America, is behind the scenes today to answer your questions. And we'll also take time periodically to share some of those with Dr. Gibbs and Kimberly Nix so that they can respond directly. Now, if you're having any difficulties, you can also put that in the questions box and let Doug know if you, like, for example, you're not hearing us or something like that. Now, I am curious, and I bet you are too, about who has joined us today as participants. So I'm going to put up a poll so that we can learn more about each other. And you should see the poll coming up on your screen in just a moment. There we go. So if you would just select one of these options so that we can know more about who's on here with us. Which of the following best describes you? I'm a student, I'm a parent of a student, I'm a teacher or a professor, I'm a K-12 or higher education administrator. And if you'll just select the right button and click submit, looks like we have about 73% of you who have responded. We'll give it just a couple of seconds more and take a look. Okay, we're going to close that and we can share our results. So we have most of you are teachers or professors or instructors. We know how valuable your time is away from your students. Thank you so much for being on this call today. And I am so excited to see that we have some students on the line. Thank you for joining us. Parents, kudos to you. We are so glad to have you here. Administrators, thank you for joining us. This is just another example of how committed you are to your students and teachers' success. So thank you all for joining us today. Now, before I introduce our speakers, if we could go to the next slide. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how this webinar came to be. Now, I am Text Help's Territory Director for the Southeast, and so last fall I noticed we had a new customer in Alabama named Denise P. Gibbs. And I thought, Denise P. Gibbs? I know a Denise Gibbs in Alabama. I wondered if this is Dr. Gibbs, the RTI expert. I was familiar with Dr. Gibbs through some mutual colleagues who had told me about her great work in the realm of RTI. So I decided to email her and ask her, and sure enough, it's her. So we jumped on a Google Hangout and started talking about how great Read and Write for Google Chrome was for students who struggle with dyslexia, and she said, Shelley, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could schedule a webinar so that we can show everybody these wonderful benefits and how this can make a difference for students? And I said, yes, it would. And in fact, I know just the person to join us for that, Kimberly Nix. And so we talked with Kimberly. Kimberly was very enthusiastic, and here we are today. If you do not know either one of these amazing educators, let me tell you a little bit about them. Dr. Denise P. Gibbs taught for more than 25 years as a professor in communication science and disorders at the University of Montevallo before becoming the director of the Alabama Scottish Rite Foundation Learning Centers. She's the author of 3 books, RTI for Early Readers, Implementing Common Core Standards in Your K-5 RTI Model, RTI for middle and high school, Strategies and Structures for Literacy Success, and Leading the Dyslexia Challenge, an action plan for school-wide identification and intervention, all published by LRP. Dr. Gibbs has been appointed by the Alabama State Board of Education to the Dyslexia Advisory Council and contributed to the development of the state's Dyslexia Resource Guide. Through the philanthropy of the Alabama Scottish Rite Foundation, she provides professional development in the areas of dyslexia and RTI at no cost to Alabama schools. Dr. Gibbs received a BS and an MS in speech-language pathology from the University of Montevallo and an education doctorate in special education from the University of Alabama. Now, Kimberly R. Nix is TextHelp's Senior Professional Development Manager for North America, and prior to joining TextHelp 6 years ago, Kimberly served in the classroom for 18 years as a learning strategies trainer, reading coach, teacher, and specialist, and for 5 years with McGraw-Hill as a national education consultant and secondary reading intervention specialist. She is a co-author of Flexible Grouping, Strategies for Success with Dr. Doug Fisher of the University of San Diego, and Reaching Struggling Readers continues to be a passion for Kimberly, who has a BS in Middle Education and an MA in K-12 Reading Education, specializing in adolescent literacy. Dr. Gibbs and Kimberly, we are delighted to hear from you today.
Well, thank you, Shelley. We are really excited to join you today as well. And
the phone ringing is the kind of thing that happens in the real world.
Again, I do hope. Sorry. Yes, it is so exciting to be together after anticipating this for so long. And I just think this afternoon is going to be a great opportunity for us to share ideas. I'm really looking forward to the question periods that we will scatter throughout the afternoon, and hope that you'll have some good questions for us and we can engage in some really good dialogue.
And I have to say, I'm also thrilled to work with Dr. Gibbs, who I will refer to from this point forward as Denise, as she had told me to call her, just because our backgrounds are so similar and we have learned so much in working with each other that it's very exciting to be able to present this to you from two different points of view, but both with the same goal.
All right, so I think I get to start us off. And my journey into this area of technology, although I've been using technology with children with dyslexia for just about as long as I can remember, my experiences prior to 2015 pretty much centered around using at first PCs, and then I went through a period of a lot of work with Apples and with iPads and what have you, but didn't really meet the Chromebook and get as excited about some of the Google opportunities until this past fall. And it was a very unusual circumstance that caused me to meet the Chromebook. I'd been invited to come to a school district to consult with them about a child who has dyslexia, and she's had an IEP for a long time as a child with a specific learning disability. She was in the 4th grade and reading at probably just barely a mid-first grade level. And so they asked me to come in, as I often do in school districts across the country, and just be a resource to them. So I'm observing in the classroom the first day that I was there, and I'm getting a feel for this little girl who's, I'm going to use pseudonyms for all of the children so we don't do any confidentiality things. And this little girl I'm going to call Molly. So I was observing Molly in her 4th grade classroom and just had a lot of ideas as to how she needed both interventions and other kinds of things. She had a number of accommodations that were in place, but technology didn't seem to be serving her very well at the beginning when I was doing the observation. And so as I looked around the classroom, I realized every child had a very tiny computer, it seemed, and I learned that those were Chromebooks. And so I was new to Chromebooks, I knew they existed, but that was about the extent of it. And so the teacher and I met at some point later in the day after I'd probably observed the child for 3 or 4 hours at least. And I just had a nice talk with the teacher to see what kinds of things as a special ed consultant that I might be able to assist her with in terms of making Molly's classroom experience be more productive. And so the teacher, without pretty much taking a breath, just basically pointed to the Chromebook and said, if you could make that thing be useful to her, it would be a really good thing. We just got these and we have them for all the children, and the way this thing works, she can't read, so that doesn't help her to use it for that, and she can't spell or write anything, so she can't really use it for that, so she just sits there with it. If there was some way you could figure out how to make this Chromebook be useful to her, that would be really helpful. And so I just kind of took a deep breath, because all of my wonderful experience with technology for dyslexia at that moment resided in iPads. And so an iPad would have been make the child speak a foreign language in a classroom where Chromebook was going to be the main language. So I just couldn't see that. So in response to the teacher's request, I don't remember exactly what I said. An honest answer would have been, I've never seen a Chromebook, so I'll have to learn some about it. But instead, I think what I probably said was, maybe I can borrow a Chromebook and take it to the hotel tonight, and then I'll have some ideas by tomorrow. And that's really exactly what I did. So I went to the hotel with the principal's Chromebook. I went in the office and asked her. She said, if you can do us any good, I'll be happy to loan this to you. So I went to the hotel with the Chromebook, logged in the hotel, and literally Googled, if you can believe this, text-to-speech and speech-to-text applications for Chromebooks. Put that in the Google search window, and the first thing that came up was Read&Write for Google Chrome. And so I spent, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes at the most playing with it. I attached it's an extension, so I was able to figure out about the Chrome Web Store and went to the Chrome Web Store and added that as an extension. I was logged in at this point to Molly's Google account through the school, which was, we had decided, the principal and I, that that would be a good way for us to do this. So I put it on there and proceeded to play with it, and by the time I went to bed that night, I knew exactly what I needed to do for Molly the next day, and we had a phenomenal day. I spent about 15 minutes or 20 minutes with her with the Chromebook. I did a sort of a formal evaluation of sorts that morning early, and then when we wrapped that up, we got the Chromebook out, and I began doing some things with Read&Write with her with the Chromebook. And very interestingly, Molly was jumping up and down literally in her seat after just the first few minutes, and she said, I can't wait to show my teacher. I've got to show my teacher what this thing will do. This makes me really smart. And it was just kind of overwhelming moment there. And what Molly said to me, just in the innocence that only a fourth grader or a child can bring to you in your work setting, was something to the effect of, this is the nicest thing anybody has ever done for me. How long are you going to stay? And so I knew I would only be there for a short time more, so I told her that I would be back. And I have gone back, and she's doing quite well. But as she watched, as the Chromebook was, I'm going to just say, reading the text on a website, what Molly said to me that almost brought tears to my eyes was that she asked me if I thought that if she watched those words while the computer read it, would she maybe get where she could read them better? And of course, I do believe that that is exactly what happens. And so I told her that that would really be our hope, and that we would work toward that. So we started down toward the classroom, and she said, now I don't want you to say a word, Dr. Gibbs, when we go in there. I want to do all the talking. I said, Molly, I am just here for the ride. So we went in, and Molly began to demonstrate for her teachers. And after we had the English teacher, the English language arts teacher, we had the special ed teacher, and I think we maybe had one other paraprofessional in the room with us, with all the rest of the students as well. They were the beginning of a writing class, a written expression assignment. So anyway, it took the teachers about, I would say a minute and a half to watch Molly, and then they whipped out their Chromebooks and immediately downloaded Read and Write for Google Chrome. And I thought, wow, how rude. They just ignored her. And so, but Molly didn't miss a beat. She looked at me and she said, I knew that's what would happen. They would have to have it too. So then Molly started sharing at the table with a couple of other students who were there who also had IEPs and probably would have benefited from the same type of technology. And in any case, sweet little Molly was showing them how to do it. So she was teaching the other students. And the joy of it was overwhelming. And for me, I am a dyslexic individual, all grown up, college professor and what have you, but I remember the struggles of being a young child who didn't quite achieve success in the classroom. So to see little Molly wake up with the excitement that this technology brought was just phenomenal. So that's kind of where I met the Chromebook, and I also met Read and Write for Google Chrome.
So Read and Write for Google Chrome, which
yeah,
is what
so Kimberly's going to tell us a little bit about Read and Write and what it really is.
Well, it really is exactly what you said. So what we're going to be looking at is Read and Write for Google Chrome. Our company is TextHelp, and the product we are looking at today is Read and Write. We're going to shorten it for saying Read and Write as opposed to saying Read and Write for Google Chrome every single time. So what is Read and Write for Google Chrome? It is an extension that resides within the Google environment. And when you install the extension, you're going to get 3 toolbars, and you see these 3 toolbars on your screen now. So these 3 toolbars contain literacy support tools. So if you are working with other instructors or parents or students, and you say, we're working with Read and Write for Google Chrome, and they ask, what is that? We want you to be able to say that it is literacy support software. Now, you do get toolbars, but we do want you to be able to say more than it's a toolbar, because this will accurately describe what the toolbars contain. And they contain tools that will help students in the areas of reading and reading supports, with the ability to interact with their text, helping them to attain new vocabulary and better attainment of the different levels of vocabulary. This will help them to collect information and organize information when they're doing research. There are also tools here that will help students with drafting and editing and writing. So all areas of literacy. A quick overview of what's here. You'll notice that the 3 toolbars that you get are, first of all, you get a Google Docs toolbar. So this is what you would see if you were to open up a Google Doc. Now the Google Docs toolbar, as you can see here, looks very similar to our web toolbar. Now that would be if you were in the Chrome browser and you're working on a website, you can launch this toolbar, and you'll notice that these two are very, very similar in the tools that they have available to students. So I'll talk a little bit as we go through our presentation today about some of the specialized tools that we have in each one of the toolbars. The third toolbar that you will also get is our PDF and EPUB toolbar. So you can interact with PDFs. And that, as we know, is a huge help for a lot of our students who are being provided PDFs in the classroom. So quickly looking back at your Google Docs toolbar, let me go over a quick overview as to what's available here. Starting from left to right, the first icon that you see, our crystal ball, or as I had a nice 5th grader say to me the other day, he thought it was a sparkling head. That first one is our word prediction tool. So of course that's going to help our students with writing. We do have a dictionary that we refer to as a talking dictionary, because all of the definitions can be speech enabled for the student. We have a picture dictionary that's going to give our students different signs, symbols, and pictures for various words, being a huge help for those who are struggling with individual words. We do have the ability to speech enable the digital text, in other words, having it read aloud. So the play, pause, and stop will help with that. We do have what's known as a screenshot reader. So if it is a picture of text and not actual text that's on the page, we can have that read aloud as well. We have a tool called the Fact Finder, which is wonderful because it's going to help students to do a one-click Google search for more information or pictures about a topic. We do also have the support of speech input or voice typing as it is known in the Google environment, which will allow a student to simply speak and it will type on the page what they're speaking. And no training is required in order to use this tool. We also have a single word translator that currently allows for 5 different languages in a single word for a single word translation. We do have 4 different colors of highlighters that can be used. And these highlighters can be used, of course, in the traditional way to highlight specific information by category. But please know we also have the ability to collect the information that has been highlighted, and that collected information will be placed onto a brand new Google Doc so that the student can only interact with the information that they have gathered. We can also use our highlighters to indicate to the program to pick the words that have been highlighted up and place them in a 4-column graphic organizer that will help students with the new word, the definition, a symbol if it's available, and a column for notes. And then one of the last tools that's available specifically on our Google Docs toolbar is a voice note tool. This voice note tool is specifically helpful for students who need to be able to verbalize or get those thoughts out immediately, or for a teacher who wants to make a comment. And the voice note will allow you to make a 1-minute or less voice comment that will be embedded in the Google Doc as a comment so that the student can listen to what their comment was, or if the document shared with an instructor, the instructor could make comments and the student could listen to those as well. So that's going to give you an overview of the Google Docs toolbar. We'll talk about, as we go into our scenarios, what the others are going to look like. Shelley, do you want to talk about the handout that was provided for them?
Yes, if you will look in the just right above your questions box on your participant panel, you'll see a Read and Write for Google Chrome Quick Reference PDF. And if you click on that document, it will just open right up on your screen. If you do that, if you need to get back to the screen that Kimberly is projecting, you would just click on the Go to Meeting or Go to Webinar icon on your taskbar. It looks kind of like a flower if you want to get back to the presentation. But we've included this in the handouts. Kimberly actually has it up on her screen now, so if you don't want to open up the handout, that's fine. You can do it later, but this information is available for you.
And this was just created as a quick way for you to not only see each one of the tools that is available to you on each one of the toolbars, a brief description of what that tool is or does, a picture of the symbol so you'll know to which icon we're referring, and then some quick user notes on how to get those tools used. And in this document, all of this information has been placed here for each one of the 3 toolbars. In addition to that, I also want to point out that you have 2 pieces that are at the top here that may be of help to you as well. We do have the very first thing here, which is a bit.ly link that will take you directly to our YouTube channel and the section that has Read and Write for Google Chrome videos. We do have a number of videos that are all very short, 2 to 4 minutes in length, I would say, that can help you to see visually how to use those particular tools. In addition to that, if you have any specific questions about using the tool, we do have a tech support website that is available 24/7, and you can go to that and type in a question that you may have, and we already have the answers to questions that have been asked previously, and there's a good chance that your question will already be answered there.
Okay, so now that you have kind of an idea, I hope, of what Read and Write does and the different features in terms of being able to use it for speech to text if you're writing a document or answering questions on a document or whatever, and then also the text to speech where it will help you read things, and all those different 3 environments. Let's talk about the afternoon and how we're going to do it. We're going to go through, I hope we'll have time for all these, but 3 scenarios involving real-life students and how these students, and they're all students that I've been working with during this school year, and we're going to talk about some of the challenges that they faced in the classroom or face in the classroom because of their dyslexia, and how we can find supports for those students through Read and Write. And then we'll have a question and answer section after each of the scenarios. So that's kind of the format and what's coming. So scenario number 1 involves that 4th grade student that I was talking about earlier. As I said earlier, she was reading at about a 1st grade level, and the challenge that I wanted to be able to help with initially, I observed her the first day I was there in a written expression assignment. All the students had their Chromebooks, and everybody was doing research on the internet to find out information about their topic. And so Molly was going to be writing a paper about wolf pups. And so everybody got started, and the teacher gave the instructions, and then the teacher was moving about the room. And Molly just kind of sat there. And so in a minute or so, not long, the teacher came over and asked if she needed help. Molly said, well, I don't know how to spell wolf, and I want to write about wolf pups. So the teacher typed wolf or wolf pups in the search window in Google. So it came up, and then Molly very interestingly picked the videos, because she had sort of figured out that she couldn't read things from the internet, but if she went to videos, she could learn in that mode. So she would do her research by watching videos. So okay, so I'm watching her watch the video, and I watched this little video about the wolf pups with their mama, and it was very interesting, not very long, and the teacher came over and said, so what did you learn from that video? And so Molly said, well, obviously these pups were being raised in captivity. And I'm sitting there thinking, how did she figure that out? And so I'm thinking, I watched that same video, and I would have just said they were playing. So what is going on here? And so the teacher said, well, how did you know they were being raised in captivity? Really, good probing on the part of the teacher. And Molly said, well, if they had not been being raised in captivity, the mother could not have been spending time playing with them. She would have been involved in teaching them survival skills and working on things about how to avoid predators and how to find their food sources. And so I am just sitting there overwhelmed at the way that this youngster had interpreted the information in the video, how she'd been able to make inferences and draw conclusions and connected to other things that she knew about. And honestly, even though her reading level might have been first grade, her thinking level and certainly her listening comprehension and comprehension in general were huge. And so we needed some kind of tool to get this child into the world of information that lives out there in the internet. So I later, of course, learned that Read and Write has a lot of things to offer. So Kimberly can show us exactly what we could have done that day if we had just been about a month ahead of ourselves in the world of Read and Write.
So one of the things that I had noticed about my students who are in my reading classroom is that although they, as Dr. Gibbs just said, or Denise, is that although that the students' reading level was far below where their actual grade level was, their thinking or comprehension ability was not, and that I found to be most often the case. So it's interesting, I think, too, that we look at what kinds of things we can do to help students strategy-wise in helping them out, and this is a huge help. So she looked up baby wolves and came across this particular web page. Now, one of the first things that we looked at in this web page is the fact that for me, and I'm easily distracted by other things, that the pictures that are here that are actually about this particular article are a few, but there's a lot of other distractions that are here. So one of the things that the Read and Write for Google Chrome, and this is the web toolbar, will allow for, and this is special for just this web toolbar, is the fact that we can click on what's called Simplify Page. When you click on Simplify Page, you are going to get just the bulk of the text. You're not going to have the pictures or advertisements or videos that may be playing that may be a distraction for students. And Denise, do you want to mention why, specifically for dyslexic students, that's a problem?
Sure. With the child with dyslexia, obviously the text is not going to be something that they're going to have ever really, I'm just going to say, learned or practiced, that's where their focus goes, and instead their focus is going to go to these other kind of sidebar items. And while you might want to skim through the passage with all the bells and whistles present, it's usually going to be a bit distracting, and then you'll want to be able to get it down to the information. And you can see how this format really lends itself well to kind of a skimming and scanning kind of a technique that we could decide to use if we wanted to, just, you know, skipping through the headings for each area and so forth. So yeah, this is a very powerful tool, and I don't know if Kimberly's going to show you, but if you touch the minus button up there at the top on the Simplify document, you can shrink down the amount of text even more, so that a student who would be overwhelmed by too many words can have the essential words. And I think that can be a very powerful. Now she's shrinking it down for us, and then she can grow it back out. So very, very powerful tool is Simplify.
And then, of course, now that we've got it in a format that's going to be helpful for the student, we need to get it read. So we actually have two different ways that we can do that. One of the things that Denise and I talked about is how important it is for students to have some ownership in the process. And one of the ways to do that, of course, is having some choices in the voice. So please know that we do have US Ava, and she happens to be my favorite of the voice choices, but we do have a number of other voice choices that are available. I tend to stick with the US voices simply because my own students may not know how words are pronounced with a UK accent or an Australian accent, but of course always fun to be able to change that. If they're rereading or they're reading for pleasure, they do have choices of what voice that they're going to listen to. And in addition to that, Denise and I spoke about this at length as well, that speed is important for students. Now, some students may need to take the speed down to slow, which is going to let them take in informational text, more difficult text, new concepts or vocabulary. But we also spoke about the fact that the dyslexic student, because they're going to be doing a lot more listening in their reading, that they may actually want to have it be a little bit faster so that they can start listening and comprehending faster. Also, I want to point out that as part of the program, we do have the option for continuous reading, and in fact that is the default setting, which means when you click on the document that it's going to start from that point and read the entire document. Oftentimes we find that students who are struggling readers for whatever reason need to be able to take in smaller amounts of text. So certainly you can uncheck continuous reading, which will allow them to hear just a word, a phrase, a title, or a sentence at a time. So one of the first things that a student who is looking to do some research, they may just want to, as Denise just mentioned, skim and scan. So I could highlight the information and hit play.
Facts about baby wolves.
Now, if I know that I don't have good fine motor control, and as we can see here, these sentences are pretty lengthy, I may prefer to use what we call hover speech. Hover speech is going to give you the ability to simply hover over an area of text and have it read. To turn it on, you simply click on the icon itself, and you'll notice that all the other icons gray out. That means no matter what you hover over, the first thing that you're telling it to do is to read. So, if I hover here,
At first, wolf pups will only consume their mother's milk.
Since we unchecked continuous read, it will read one sentence at a time.
At first, wolf
To reread it, all I have to do is hover back over that sentence and it will reread it. So to skim and scan, I can very easily hover
early days
over each one of the subtitles and hear what those different sections are. To turn it back off again, I would click on the hover speech, which will allow me to use the other tools. In addition to this, I really like the fact that as the students are listening to and reading along with, they have some other supports that are going to help them. One of my favorites is the picture dictionary. If you select a particular word, so for instance, this word, and I click on the picture dictionary, it's going to give me a picture that will go along with the word. And I really like the fact too that the picture dictionary includes multiple meaning pictures. I think so often we forget how many different meanings our words have. So this is kind of a discoverable moment for students who are reading about these wolf pups that are blind at birth, thinking blind, but forgetting that, oh yeah, that there's another meaning for the word blind. So I can choose different words and come up with different pictures. And these pictures, again, are going to be a help. And I love this, too, because we've got two different meanings for the word den, the one that we're familiar with and the one that the student may not be so familiar with. In addition, of course, to this, we do have the actual dictionary definition. So if there's something in particular that I want to look up, I can find out that information. Say the word maturity. If I click on the definition, I do have a dictionary. Now, one of the nice things about both the picture dictionary and the dictionary is that you can move it around the screen, so you can move it to a place that you're comfortable with. And then for each of the definitions, if you click on them,
State of being mature, full development.
And if I'd like to hear the part of speech, I can click on it as well.
Noun.
So that's going to be a help. A student can listen to each one of the definitions as many times as they need to, and then choose the one that is correct based on the way that the word is used. Now, another tool that I find really helpful for our students while they're reading is this tool. As I mentioned earlier, the Fact Finder tool is a great tool because it's going to give them one-click Google search for additional information. So for instance, if they're reading that young pups are often preyed upon by golden eagles, and they don't know what a golden eagle is, notice not just a word, but a phrase or a topic I can highlight and then click on our Fact Finder, and it's going to do, as I said, a one-click Google search. First of all, this just fosters students finding out more information for themselves, and I really like our program for the fact that it really does empower our students and not enable them, which means we're helping them to help themselves. So if a student needed more information, they don't have to highlight, copy, open up Google, paste, and then go. The Fact Finder is going to allow them to quickly and easily do a Google search. Because they can launch the toolbar right within this environment, they can also use the hover speech to listen to each one of the titles here, even though they're hyperlinked.
Facts about golden eagles curiosity.org.
So I can listen to each one of the different articles that's offered here for me, and then I can choose which one I want to find more information about. So again, really facilitating our students getting the type of information they need in order to make things make sense for them. Another thing that we talked about, since this student was supposed to be doing some research about baby wolves, we know that highlighting is going to help students to easily go back to the specific information they need to gather for that research. So one of the things I think that oftentimes our students don't recognize, when we give them 4 colors to choose from, we're not giving them a box of crayons. What we're doing is giving them an opportunity to highlight information by category, or in other words, color coding. So I like to be able to show, that students can color code information, and let me show you one of the charts that I came up with to help students and teachers in giving students purposeful ways of indicating categories of information. So I started actually working with elementary schools in DC public schools, and the teachers I worked with helped me to come up with this chart. You know, oftentimes students will highlight with a certain color, and then suddenly they'll choose a different color because they like it. I had a student who just recently said to me, you know, I highlighted this information in yellow because it's going to help me with information about the setting. And I said, that's great. I said, I see that you've highlighted here in a different color. Is this information about your second question about the plot? She said, no, I saw that pink was available and it's my favorite color. So we want to make sure that students recognize that if you have different colors, you can indicate different categories of information. And there's a number of ways to do this and to practice with this. I really, as a reading professional, like the fact that we can have students think about their thinking, because reading is a complex thinking process, and the more we think about what we've read, the more likely we are to retain it. So highlighting information, for instance, in yellow, that's information you understand, or things that you have questions about, highlight in blue so you can go back to it easily, or new vocabulary that you need more help with or you need to look up or get more a picture clue or more help, you could highlight in another color as well. So this is just giving some suggestions on why you may do that, and we can make this available to you as well. So in using that same idea, if we're going to look at information about the early days of the wolf pups, we may highlight that information in blue. And then anything that has to do with the pup's early days, we could highlight then, of course, in blue. And that's going to be a help for the student. Again, choosing growth as our next category, we would choose, say, a different color, perhaps yellow. And then all of the information that the student would gather about growth would also be in yellow. Anything you'd like to add about that, Denise, before I show how to collect the highlights? Okay, so what I'm going to do then is this. As the students are collecting information and highlighting information that they think is important, I can show you that we can click on our Collect Highlights button. When I click on the Collect Highlights button, it's going to ask me, first of all, do I want to collect all the colors? So if I had only highlighted, or I had highlighted with all the colors, I could collect, of course, all the information. If I just wanted to collect the information, say, about early days here, I could uncheck all the other colors and just have it collect the information in blue. Now, another nice feature that it gives you is that you can choose for this new information. As I said, it's going to be collected and picked up and placed onto a brand new Google Doc to be grouped together by color or position in the document. Now, for this particular exercise, it would not matter because we are actually grouping the information together by color, but we could do it by position in the document because it would group the information that we wanted by category as well. So I'm going to just show by position in the document and click OK. And what this will do is open up a brand new Google Doc for me with that information. So you can see that now I've pulled that information, and this would be a help for students because if they're gathering information and they have a particular topic that they're gathering it on, they can make sure that they keep that particular subheading with the information there. Please also note that you can clear highlights by simply running your cursor over that information and clicking on the broom, which would eliminate the highlights if the color is too much. Maybe they just want the subheading to still have that color, and they may use the same color coding system as they start looking at other documentation.
And Kimberly, a nice thing that you can do at this page as well is you can use the toolbar and you can have the text that the student is seeing read back to them. So that can be very helpful as well, because with a student with dyslexia, in a lot of ways, this now feels just like a lot of words, but they are words that were, chosen carefully and signify something. But being able to now listen to those words is also good.
Early days.
Absolutely. So other things that we can do with the highlighters, we talked about the vocabulary and how important it is. We know that 75% of comprehension is knowing and recognizing the vocabulary. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that students have a way to help them help themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and choose some words, and as you can see, one of the nice shortcuts is if I double click on a word, the cursor will highlight it, and then I can choose a color. Now for this particular activity, which is I'm going to build a vocabulary list, it does not matter what color I choose to highlight the words with. The important thing is that I am choosing words and choosing one of our colors to highlight them with, because that's going to indicate to the program to pick those words up and place them into a vocabulary list. This is the vocabulary icon, and when I click on that, it's going to pick these words up and build on a brand new Google Doc a graphic organizer. Now the graphic organizer is going to have 4 columns. The first column is going to be the word itself. The second column is the column for meanings and multiple meanings if they are available. We also have a column for the symbol and one for notes. So the nice thing about this is this is built for either the teacher or the student. Now the teacher may choose to build this prior to sharing it with the student, and then they can do something like go through the definitions, since all are going to be listed, and maybe narrow it down to just 2 so that the student can figure out which one is correct based on the way it's used, and either delete the incorrect one or highlight the one that is correct. Also, for anything that does not have a picture, because it is not in our picture dictionary, again, as I mentioned, we can highlight that particular topic or that word and do that one-click Google search. And because we know that Google searches do have the word images at the top, we do have the ability to get a picture that may be helpful for the student. So the student could pick out a picture that would really resonate or work for that particular student. And your thoughts on that, Denise Saar?
I think that being able to build your own vocabulary sheet in this capacity, this graphic organizer, so plays into everything we know about how to actually build students' vocabularies. And the column on notes gives you all manner of opportunities. Kimberly is going to tell you at some point this afternoon about the voice note feature, and if a student with dyslexia is using a document like this, how cool it would be to be able to go up to voice note and click that and put your own you're in your own words what this word means, and then be able to hear it, and then you could, if you wanted to, later go back and write it, but to be able to say it in your own words could be a powerful vocabulary feature, and the vocabulary list just lends itself to doing that.
I'll go ahead and share that now, since you mentioned it. Why not? So we're on a Google Doc, and this is a feature that is available on a Google Doc. It's called Voice Note. The nice thing, as I mentioned earlier, is that I can choose where I want this voice note to point to, if you will. And I changed the notes column, as you saw, to examples. So if I wanted the student to give me an example that this reminded them of or from their own life, I can click on the voice note feature. You'll see that this band comes up, and again, the 1-minute timer, this is going to allow me to make a 1 minute or less actual MP3 file, a file of me speaking, right here in the comments. So I'm going to click on the microphone and make a recording. There is a boy who threatens me on the way to school some days. When I'm finished making my recording, I click on the stop button, and you saw it pulsating while it makes the recording. I can listen to that recording, and if it is not what I want, I can go back and re-record simply by clicking on the picture of the microphone. If I'm ready to insert it as a comment exactly where it is, I can click on Insert. You'll see that we have some colors running here at the bottom of the box, letting us know that it's processing that particular comment, and you'll see that now it's blinking here. This is where my comment is, and I can listen to it here. There is a boy who threatens me on the way to school some days. So that can be a help, as Denise just mentioned, especially because a lot of students need to start to process it and get it down verbally, especially, of course, dyslexic students who are going to have more difficulty getting that in writing.
Yeah, I think voice notes can be something that our children begin to use to make sure that they are understanding and synthesizing the information as they go along. So much easier for them to go back and be in touch with the voice note than if they created more text to have to read.
Absolutely. So another thing that we wanted to show, just in helping students out, especially the students that I worked with and myself actually, have a really hard time oftentimes when they are working with text and they're not able to interact right next to it. If they have to go back and forth between documents, I mean, you can see I have so many tabs open at the top of my screen that can be difficult and frustrating for students to go back and forth. So Denise said, why don't you show a strategy that I used all the time in my classroom to help students, and that is a 2-column note format. The nice thing about having the simplified page is literally I can take the simplified page and copy it, and when I copy it, I can put it directly onto a Google Doc. Now what I did here was, and I'll show you at the bottom here, is that I simply added a 2x2 table. So I went to a table, insert table, 2x2. I inserted that table. I moved it over slightly so that there'd be a place to write, and I could actually just paste that information directly in there. So that is going to be a help for students because this is going to allow them to have the text and have a place to put any thoughts that they have to help them remember. A voice note, as you just saw. This student decided that they thought having a picture of a gray wolf and a red wolf would be a help. This particular definition of alpha for alpha male and female, they thought having that definition right here would be a help as they read and think about it. One of the things I did not show, but you can do, so let me show you how to do this, the picture dictionary. One of the nice things about the picture dictionary is that if I'm having trouble with a particular word, I can double click on the word and you'll see that the picture appears. If I want that picture, I can certainly come over, right click, copy the image, and then I can paste that image wherever I would like into the Google Doc itself. So that may be a help for students. I can move that image to someplace else if I'd rather. Knowing that students can pop that picture clue in so that they have it to refer to as often as they like, I think is a huge help for students.
So now, Kimberly, all the people in our audience are sitting there going, oh my goodness, how many millions of ways for me to use that? All right, so that finishes up our first scenario, guys, and we promise we'll go a little faster with the next two. That was our most involved. So it's time for questions.
Okay, so we have collected a few questions here, and several of them have to do with the vocabulary list builder. So can I save the vocabulary list was one of the questions.
Yes, when you're working in the Google environment, every Google Doc that you create, and this is a Google Doc that is created, is auto-saved in your drive. So it absolutely can be saved. And if you'd like, I'll go ahead and show you that vocabulary list. To move the toolbar for the Google Docs out of the way, we click on the little purple puzzle piece that says RW for Read and Write, and you'll notice that it's always going to title your new vocabulary list untitled, to remind you that if you're going to save this, you're going to want to do two things. Number one, you're going to want to put what this is a vocabulary list of, what types of words are from what topic. And then the second thing you're going to want to do is, since it saves it directly in your drive, you may want to move it to a place so that you can find it more easily.
Great. We also had another question about, do the voice notes save with the document?
Excellent. So here we have the voice note with the document. It is a comment, but I will go ahead and go back into my drive and show you that the first time you use the tool, you will have a folder right here called My Voice Notes. In that folder, every document that you have made voice notes on is going to be listed here so that you can see the actual voice note and you can listen to it from here. So if for some reason a student clicked resolve and so you could no longer see that comment, you can still get to that voice note within that voice notes folder.
Great. And
if the student doesn't click resolve, Kimberly, then when they open the document again, the voice note will still be attached to it so that you'll actually see it. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
And will you show them about the resolve? I don't know how we get to that from here, but...
So here I have a voice note that I just made. See where the resolve is? If I click on that, this will go away. Gone.
But now the voice note itself is still in the Google Drive, but it's no longer attached to the document.
That is correct.
So what we would do is
reopen it.
Yeah, and it's so powerful, guys, that this voice note will just stay attached to the document. I see the use of voice notes. We're going to get to this later, but as a teacher, to be able to give feedback to your children with dyslexia with something other than a red pen, imagine being able to grade a paper and give them feedback via voice notes so they hear your encouraging voice telling them, this was a really good example, and you can insert those throughout the document. And then children can have the joy in seeing or hearing the feedback from their teacher, and it'll be so much nicer than red pens. Whether we're writing something to them or what, it's just such a neat way to give feedback.
Okay,
I guess
so
you can tell I'm a fan of Voice Note.
it is an awesome tool. So I just want to encourage everyone, continue to send in your questions as you're thinking of them. Doug will answer them in the background if he can, and some of them we will forward on for the next segment to Dr. Gibbs and Kimberly.
All right, so guys, we're ready for scenario number 2. And I'll tell you, we're going to move a lot faster because we've burned about an hour of our time almost already. We were thinking 20 minutes, but anyway, here we go. So here's scenario number 2. This youngster, I'm going to call him Morgan, and he is in the 7th grade, and I'm working with him regularly. He's reading at about a 2nd grade level, and his difficulty is he has an IEP, and his IEP for specific learning disabilities specifies that print documents he needs to be given the opportunity to have them read aloud. And so at his school, what I learned pretty quickly was that a lot of times he was given documents that there didn't appear to be any kind of electronic or digital format for that or copy of the document. So he had like a worksheet or a study guide that nobody had on a computer anywhere. And so how are we going to make the technology work with that? His IEP said it needed to be read aloud, and so of course the special ed professional in the room would be glad to read it aloud to him. But as a 7th grader, he didn't want that to happen. He was embarrassed. So that wasn't a good idea. He didn't want to go to the special ed room to have it read out loud because then he had to leave the classroom too often. So how are we going to make these non-digital documents be something that his technology would serve him with?
So, of course, there are several options. The first one being that a teacher could take the document and take it to a flatbed scanner and actually scan it in so that it would be in digital format, much like what you see here. Or, of course, they could also take a picture of it with their camera in their phone and either drag it and drop it or move it to their Google Drive, or, of course, they could send it as an attachment as well. But in either case, either one is possible. And oftentimes students are given something just like what you see here. And as Denise has said, this is kind of the Rachel Ray. So we're showing you what's already been done after it happens. But I want to start with the fact that most people are stunned at the fact that our program will allow you to really interact with a PDF. So the first thing I want to show you is that the student would need to read this. And to do that, of course, I can highlight where I want it to read and click play.
Read the story.
And then
Answer the questions.
So this is going to allow me to have a little more control over how much is read at one time. I'm clicking the play button. We do have a continuous read that will read one sentence at a time, and that would probably be advantageous for a student who's reading this entire selection. So
School starts in a week, and today is the day we go shopping for school supplies.
in addition to that, we have the ability for students to be able to actually answer and type on what they've been given or what the students have the paper copy of. So we do have a couple tools that are going to help students with doing that. The first thing is that I want to go back and show a strategy. Many of our students know, but I just wanted to show that it can be enhanced with the highlighting. Students know that if the first thing they have to do is read the story and answer the questions, that the best thing that they can do is to look at those questions and to read the questions first. So again, being able to click on and read the question.
What caused her to change her mind?
Is going to be a huge help for them. So then one of the nice things about having the highlighters and being able to actually highlight directly onto a PDF is the fact that if the student is looking for specific information and they've highlighted the key words in the question to look for information about, they can use, again, that color coding system to find information that will help support their answer. So the nice thing about that is, again, the highlighting and the color coordinating. So question 2, what caused her to change her mind? She's looking for information, or the person reading this is looking for information about what caused her to change her mind. Now, how can she answer this question directly on the PDF? Well, we do have what's called a typewriter feature. When you click on the big T for typewriter, you'll notice that your cursor becomes a T, and I can click here, which will allow me to then answer this by typing or by using speech input. Now, speech input or voice typing is indicated here by the headphones and the speaker. If I wish to use speech input, I can click on this particular icon. I need to make sure that I allow access to the microphone so that I can speak and have it type. She changed her mind because she found her backpack was dirty, comma, the strap was broken, comma, and her papers were all stuck together, period. When I click on the check mark that you saw in that box, one of the nice things is that it will stop. And you probably heard that I used punctuation as I had it type so that it would actually type on the page exactly what I wanted. This is wonderful because this is a great way, especially as Denise has been talking about, dyslexic students can more easily answer right directly on this particular sheet. Now, another thing that would be of help to them, of course, is our word prediction. Now, word prediction can also be used with the typewriter tool. If you click on the crystal ball, or the sparkling head, if you will, as I'm trying to type, you can see here that it is going to give me a list of suggestions. Now, I like the fact that I can hover
market,
over each one of the suggestions.
marketplace, marriage.
Again, to help me, help support me, because oftentimes I'm not sure exactly if the word that I want is there or not. So I'm looking for the word marker, and as I type in, it's going to continue to suggest. Once I have found the word that I'm looking for, I can click on that word, or I can click on Control and the number, and it will place it on the document for me. Again, when I'm finished with typing, I click on the check mark, and that's going to stop the typing for that particular line. Now, to stop with the typewriter tool, you would come back up to the typewriter tool. When you click on the big T, you'll notice that the backlighting in red will go away. One other thing that I want to point out, because I want to show that this is really not just such a huge help for students, it's also a huge help for teachers. One of the features that we have here with the PDF is what we call the pushpin annotations. Now, I like the pushpin annotations because, as you can see here, when you click on this, I can put the pushpin where I'd like it to be, and I can then put in specific feedback or instructions for a student. Now, the nice thing about this, in my estimation, is the fact that any instructions, any modifications to the directions, anything that you want students to do, no one else would be able to see just by looking at it. The student would actually have to be able to click on the pushpin, but they can have it read back to them if they highlight it and press, if they highlight it and press play.
Please write in complete sentences.
So I think that's a help for teachers to be able to make those modifications and adaptations, as well as giving feedback. Denise, what would you like to say about this?
Well, what we've seen so far about how Read and Write works with PDF documents is pretty phenomenal, and we all in education deal with PDFs a lot, and our dyslexic children certainly could interact much better with this. But the part that Kimberly is about to show us is the part that I guess blew me away with it when I first encountered the solution to this. And I'll just tell you that Shelley, who of course is our moderator, has been kind of on speed dial with me since I learned about Google because Read and Write, because what I've done is whenever I encounter some real disaster, I'll just text or email Shelley and say, hey, Shelley, is there a way to do this? And she always has an answer. And so when I ask her, but how do I turn this into this? She said, okay, there's this thing called Snapverter. And she talked me through this, and so Kimberly's going to show it to us. Y'all, this is a game changer.
So before we do that, I just am curious. We have another poll. So how many of you use currently optical character recognition, or OCR, to make locked PDFs or images accessible? So your answers could be, yes, we do, no, we don't, I'm not sure, or what in the world is OCR? It is not Office of Civil Rights, as Dr. Gibbs pointed out to me. That is another meaning for that acronym. Do any of you use optical character recognition? We got about 46%, 50% voted. We're just going to give it a couple more seconds, and then we will close this out and see what our results were. So most of, well, a little over the majority of our whatever that correct word should be in this political season, 38%. The highest percentage, no, we do not. But quite a few, what in the world is OCR? And I have to tell you, that's what I thought first time I heard of it too. Kimberly, I bet you can fill us in.
I can. So optical character recognition, or OCR as it is referred to, optical character recognition is a system. So I'm sure that you all have had this experience where you've had a PDF that you couldn't do anything with. The majority of the time I find in my searches online when I find a PDF that's what we call locked or inaccessible. That's true for things from publishing companies. That's true for most flatbed scanners and scanners that are with copiers. What happens is when you are scanning in a document and scanning it into PDF, it is what we call a locked or inaccessible PDF if it has not gone through OCR, or optical character recognition. Optical character recognition is a system that goes through your document and looks for and identifies a known font. It's looking for characters or letters. If you don't run it through an optical character recognition system, then basically it's like a flat image or a blank. It does not see that there are letters, and therefore a text-to-speech engine cannot read it. So it has to have identified letters in it. So what I find oftentimes is that PDFs that are available for us to use, we can't do anything with because they've not run through an optical character recognition system. We do at TextHelp have an application that will allow you to literally take a photo of text, and keep in mind that's really the same thing that you're doing if you're laying a piece of text on a flatbed scanner. You're literally taking just a picture of that text. It lets you run through and convert it or go through our OCR system so that our system, our read aloud tools can read the document aloud. So just to kind of help clarify what that looks like, I'm going to take us back to my drive. You'll notice that I have inserted the SnapVerter app. Now the SnapVerter app is available in the Chrome Web Store. When you install that, you get 4 different folders. So what you would do is to drop a file or upload a file into the Drop Here file. What happens is it runs it through, so in progress, it will run that document through the OCR system. When it is finished, you'll be able to click on the finished file and see what document that you've run through, now having gone through the OCR process. So the important thing about this is, and the example that I'm showing you is, that I took the document, the cause and effect that was shared with me, Denise shared it with me, and I used my phone to take a picture of it, and then I took it and drove it into my drive, and I drag it directly into the drop files here. It ran through it and put it into the finished. So now, if I had been sitting right next to a student and I had been handed that piece, that particular worksheet that's here, I could have taken a picture of it and then very quickly moved it into my drive, specifically into my SnapVerter, specifically into the drop files here, and it would have run it through the OCR, and I would have had this for a student to use. So that, to me, is hugely helpful, because if you have a document that's a PDF that has not gone through OCR, you will not see, if you have Read&Write for Google Chrome installed, you would not see this particular toolbar. But now a student can interact with it.
And when I think about being exactly in that kind of situation where you're sitting with a child and the teacher hands something to you and there's not anything that the child can do with it. They can't read it, and we don't have it electronically. To be able to literally take my phone out, take a picture of it, and in real time, this takes less than probably 90 seconds from take the picture, drop it into your Google Drive, into your Snapverter folder, the drop here, and then have it convert. And then we're ready to read it on the child's device. To me, this is just a game changer. And so it's another good reason to go buy a smartphone if you don't have one. Okay, so it's time for questions, right?
Yes, and we have gotten some good questions. So, do you have to use a headset for speech input?
Denise, do you want to answer that one? I can answer it if you don't.
I would say you certainly don't. And if a child is doing this at home for homework or working in a relatively quiet environment, they don't need a headset for the speech input for sure. But what I have found with students is that when I put the headset on so that they can both hear the text coming back and use the microphone attached to the headset, they tend to be willing to talk more softly, and so it just creates a little bit better environment. And also when you've got the little boom microphone in front of your mouth, you can kind of cover it with your hand just a little bit while you're talking if you wanted to, and that will also cut down on the noise beside you. As you can see, I'm talking, and if Kimberly and I were in a lab together and we were both trying to use Read and Write, her computer would want to listen to me and mine would want to listen to her. The microphone kind of takes care of that problem. And of course the headphones are necessary because no child wants to be listening to this out loud and everybody looking at them and going like, what is she doing over there? So yeah, we usually do like the headphones, but it's not necessary as far as the technology is concerned.
Because what just happened is that Denise and I are in two different locations, and this was picking up simply on the speakers of my computer to type this, which is to me pretty incredible. The accuracy, I think, is amazing. My only suggestion, also based on my experience, is if a student is in a noisy room and is right next to students, just to put your hand and cup it on the outside of the microphone just to kind of help that information to straight go into the microphone and not pick up on others.
Awesome. So we'll just do one more question just in the interest of time. The question was, with all the highlights and notes that you put on that PDF, did they save? Did they save?
Yes, everything in Google is auto-saved. And so one of the things that actually Denise and I had spoken about is the fact that if a teacher shares that PDF with the student, that they may want to change the name of it. I'm sorry, I should probably even share this. They may want to change the name of it to put the name and include their name. So let me go back to here. So they may want to put their name on this document, but of course also in the folder. Where's my folder? Let me go back to my folder. You may want to put the student's name in that PDF that they're working on so that it has their name on it. They may want to make a copy of it so that they're not working on the same document that others are working on. Does that help to answer the question?
So it would say cause and effect, worksheet, OCR, John Jones or whatever, so that it would be clear that that was the one that John had rather than somebody else's. So then the changes that John makes are just to the one that is his document.
Yes, that answered it. Thank you so much.
All right, so we're ready for scenario 3. All right, this one is an 8th grade student, and this student very happily has been in some very good intervention, and reading level has come up remarkably, and is now he is reading at a 6th to 7th grade reading level. It still takes effort for him to read. He doesn't read fast for sure, and he puts a lot of energy into it while he's reading, but his difficulty now mostly lies in the area of written expression. And think about that your dyslexic children have not had lots of opportunities to do a lot of writing, and if they did try to do writing, they were usually kind of blocked by their difficulties with spelling. So lack of practice, difficulties with spelling, and one of the things if you're dyslexic and you're writing that you're going to really do, and there's really not much way to circumvent this if you're the teacher, because you can say, I'm not going to count off for spelling or whatever. The child just doesn't want to try to use words that they can't spell. So everything they write gets filtered by, but I can't spell that, but I can't spell that. And an unfortunate thing about many children with dyslexia is that even when we succeed in bringing their reading level up, spelling will not necessarily follow suit. So you have that as an issue. And the other thing is, with lack of opportunities to do written expression, they really don't know how to organize themselves to gather the information, to do a compare and contrast or whatever. So they really need practice with that, and both the text to speech, where they'll have some assistance with reading, and the speech to text becomes critical. So there are many tools that that Kimberly can show us from Read and Write that will facilitate this written expression process.
So in addition to the fact that the text is getting more complex and that having the tools to help them with the comprehension, and these are the same tools that we saw on a web toolbar and we saw on the PDF toolbar, they also have on a Google Doc. Google Docs is where I think our students spend a lot of their time. Because I do not have continuous reading checked, I can simply click anywhere within the title and click play.
The Johnstown flood.
And it will only read that section. The same is true for the sentences. I can click anywhere within the sentence and click play. It will read only that one sentence. Now, another one of the tools that we had talked about is that as the students are reading, they may come across something that they need additional help with. And I like the fact that, especially in Google Docs, we can click on a word and in the picture dictionary and the multiple meanings. We don't think about them oftentimes, but they're very helpful for the student to have, and which one is correct. Even with a word like earth, which can mean the dirt or can mean the planet. So the nice thing in Google Docs is that you can simply click on a particular word and you're going to get multiple meanings if it is a multiple meaning word. So in addition, you can also have the dictionary open and the picture dictionary open at the same time. You can move these around, so you can simply go to each one. And you'll notice I'm not even highlighting the word. I'm simply clicking on the word itself. And now I have not only the picture clue with the multiple meanings, but I also have the dictionary, so I can listen to each one of those. Now, for this particular activity, as students are now understanding what they've read, they've gotten the comprehension, they've had the ability to access additional tools to help them with the comprehension, and they can reread as often as they want. Just like we did that cause and effect worksheet, cause and effect is a difficult concept for all students, but we know that our students especially struggle with it as they get older because of the text complexity. So having the ability to highlight information, and in this case the students were instructed in the third paragraph to highlight a cause and an effect relationship with the same color. So the student highlighted several days of heavy rain struck the area and club officials struggled to reinforce the neglected dam. There's a cause and effect relationship. The nice thing again for the dyslexic student is they can read and reread this as often as they need to. What we did was we collected the highlights, and I did this in advance, which is a good thing because we were running really short on time. I collected the highlights and you'll see how they are listed together, the cause and the effect relationship. The nice thing for the student is, in order to process this, they can again listen to what they've highlighted by using the play button. Then the student would be asked to label which is which, cause and effect. In order to help them to process that information again, we know that this teacher, who happened to be a really good teacher, asked them to tell, now that they have listened to each one of these,
under tremendous pressure from the swollen waters.
And the effect was?
The dam began to disintegrate.
So the student could use either the speech input or the voice note and restate this in their own words. Restating or retelling in their own words is going to help them to solidify that comprehension. So they could use the voice note and put down here. And then this teacher also asked them, did this happen on purpose or was it accidental? Did one cause the other on purpose or was it just something that happened because of it? And then was it something that could be avoided? So a student could use this speech input and say, The dam began to fall apart because it was in bad shape and there was a lot of water, period. So you can see that the student can use this to help them. And again, every time they're asked to do something with information on a higher level, categorize it, cause or effect, restate it in their own words, paraphrasing, that's going to help them. And then coming to some sort of conclusion. So what happened here and why? All of the things, all of those things are going to help any student, but especially a struggling reader, to better not only understand the information but retain it. Dr. Gibbs?
I think what strikes me about this whole idea is that it allows the student who has dyslexia and who may be very, very bright and very, very insightful, but up until now, without this kind of technology, may feel somewhat locked out of these literacy types of activities, to be able to find a way. It's like a ramp. I mean, it gives them a way to be able to access this type of learning experience and to be part of the learning community. So particularly for older students, I find myself saying more and more in workshops that in many ways, while we talk about the importance of intervention, and we want to kind of contrast sometimes intervention versus assistive technology, this type of assistive technology is actually a kind of intervention, because the student is learning to function in a literate world effectively. Even though we may not be able to bring reading up to a certain level, they're still able to show what they know. And that's really what so many activities in school are about, but you only have the way of doing it through traditional writing or whatever. So I'm just overwhelmed at what this brings to the table for the child with dyslexia, and I'm so glad we've been able to share these scenarios with you, because they are real live children who have been thriving with these tools just in the last few months.
And we know that a student can only write at or below the level at which they read, because that's their example. There are lots of writing tools that will help solidify what they read, and that will help assist them in those ways. And I'm glad that we've been able to bring that to you as well. Shelley?
All right, last call for questions. If you've got questions, go ahead and put them through to Doug in the questions box. And Kimberly, if we can go on to the next slide. So, some of you on the call today have Read and Write for Google Chrome now. So this was a great introduction to you to help you to use the tool with your students who are dyslexic. For those of you who don't have it, we have a way for you to check it out, and that applies to anybody. So if you're not a subscriber but would like to try the tools we've seen, anyone can download Read and Write from Google Chrome from the Chrome store and try the full premium version, which is what we looked at today, free for 30 days. So at the end of that period, you can subscribe through the Chrome store. If not, the premium features will go gray, but the text-to-speech and translator tools will remain active in Google Docs and the Chrome browser. So Kimberly, could we just pop into out to the Chrome store just so we can show the folks what that looks like? So you can just Google Chrome store, and you'll get the link to that. And Kimberly's there, and she's typing in Read and Write in the search bar in the top left. And when she does that, it pops right up. So it's under the extensions. So you would click there on Read and Write, and when you click, it's going to, now Kimberly has already added hers to Chrome, so in the top right corner of that window it says added to Chrome, but for you it would say add. And so once you've added it to Chrome, if you're a teacher or an instructor or administrator in education, you can scroll down on that toolbar on the side and it shows you where you would go to sign up for free premium access. We provide free premium access to educators to help you become familiar with the tools your students may be using. So you would follow the same steps to download the extension. Then you would go to that address listed in the sidebar to register as an educator for free premium access. Thank you, Kimberly. For educational institutions, we do provide longer free pilots if that's something you'd like to discuss. You can alert Doug through the questions box now, or I'll pop up a contact slide in a moment so you'll know how to get in touch with us. So at Text Help, one of our mottos is we're here to help. So whether you are a subscriber or you're checking out Read and Write through the free trial or pilot, we offer training resources and tech support to help you. And here's how you can access that support. Support.texthelp.com is a support log. If you have any questions, you can type them in there, and the answers are probably there. If not, you can contact Text Help Support, us-support@texthelp.com. We've got a phone number. Follow them on Twitter. Okay, Kimberly, let's go to the next one. And here I have the contact information for Dr. Gibbs and for Kimberly Nix and for Text Help in general. Now, who would like to have this presentation so you don't have to write all that down? I thought so. So in just a second, I'll pull up this one last poll so that you can let us know if you would like to receive a copy of the presentation or how we can help you going forward. So I'm going to give you just a second to take a screenshot of that slide if you want to, and then launch our final poll. How can we help you and follow up? Send me a recording, contact me about piloting Read and Write, contact me about subscription and deployment options. So if you wanted the details on how you roll this out to your institution or how you subscribe. Information on training and support. If you have Read and Write and you recognize that you haven't been getting the full potential of it and you need some training, Kimberly's team is fabulous with that. Let us know. And then if you would like information about Dr. Gibbs' dyslexia consulting, let us know. So, okay, we're going to give just a few more seconds for you to respond to that. And thank you so much, Dr. Gibbs and Kimberly, for being with us today. And thank you, educators who have joined us. Our other motto at Text Help is from literacy to life. And we are privileged to work with all of you to help all learners and adults, learners of all ages, to make that literacy to life transition. Dr. Gibbs, Kimberly, do you have anything to add?
I just want to say thank you for all you do for kids, and I think that Dr. Gibbs is certainly a testament to the barriers that are there are not insurmountable. There are lots of things now, especially with technology, and I'm finding I'm using a lot of our technology with Read and Write for Google Chrome to help me as a continued struggling reader. So I just think that there's so much out there, and Dr. Gibbs is a huge inspiration for me. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody for signing up today for this webinar, and I hope this was valuable to you. When Shelley and I dreamed the dream of putting this together so that our energy, my energy for this product, and I don't work for Text Help and wouldn't accept any kind of remuneration, whatever. As a consultant, I'm always independent, but I will tell you that when I find a tool that is valuable and that helps children, I just can't keep it inside. And to be able to share this in this kind of venue is just phenomenal. And I thank you so much for allowing us to spend the afternoon with you, and hope that you'll find as much joy in going forward with technology with your students as possible.
Okay, folks, until we meet again, happy teaching and learning. Thanks for joining us today.